Thank you. Our next presenter is my African brother. He has been to Africa more times than myself in the last 5 years. And his presentation is a model and research agenda for teacher and student collaboration using tablets in digital media making, results from Sub-Saharan African workshops. And his name's Dr. Eric Hamilton, from a professor at Harvard University. Thank you.
And yet, if I use this one, we prevent Moses from retaking the floor. So, yes, my name is Eric Hamilton, and I'm thrilled to be here. I've been taken with many of the presentations, including ones where I haven't been sitting in because I've been doing other things related to the conference. And I'm convinced that there's some value. I'm thinking about the conversation about classroom flipping. I see the people from Pittsburgh here, from Sarasota, from Cary, North Carolina, and I'm going to talk a little bit about how we've enacted a research agenda associated with building up what we call a science of learner engagement in mathematics and science. And I want to broach the idea and encourage some communication around the idea of federating or consolidating some of the common interests, especially at the K-12 level, in building a research base around some of the work that's taking place. That will be, I think, extremely valuable for securing funding support and for building a greater momentum for this work. Tomorrow I'm going to give a long paper on work that we do that's funded by the National Science Foundation in what we call an ensemble of cyber tools to promote classroom learning, especially in science and mathematics. Everything we do in this work supported by the National Science Foundation is also being supported in a Fulbright project in Sub-Saharan Africa, and through some work that Microsoft Research has been funding off and on for a number of years. I'm going to share with you work that we do with tablet computers and with Wacom boards in Namibia. It's actually reflective of workshops that we've been carrying out in Namibia. I just came back from 2 months there, Ghana, Kenya, and Uganda. So this is actually a pan-Sub-Saharan effort. And our effort is to promote teacher creativity and to promote the capacity of teachers and students to collaborate with one another in crafting and creating interactive digital media to help teach mathematics. There are a lot of implications for mobile devices. Sierra, there's going to be a lot of implications for writing boards like Wacom, and I was just telling Sierra before I started, before this session started, that we buy a lot of Wacom boards for the work that we do. Now, I was never aware before WIPTTE of Office Mix. I don't know if any of you, if Office Mix was new for any of you, but it was new for me, and it's a way to make PowerPoint more movie-like. Is that a fair enough way to describe Office Mix? Yeah. So I'm going to try something over the next 10 minutes, and I'm going to go 10 minutes, where I'm going to take a movie and convert it to a PowerPoint. I have a 2-minute movie that I'm going to show that kind of depicts what we've been doing in the last 2 months in Namibia, and I'm going to pause it. I want you to know that I've never done this before. So if it's kind of a choppy presentation style, it's because it's the first time, but otherwise I'm going to have a little bit of fun with it. And I won't be able to move around too much because I need to keep stopping. So what you see right here, the opening screen of the movie, these are teachers in just underneath the Angolan border, and they're all working on SP2s and SP3s. The next day, actually, they wind up getting a lot of Wacom boards. And again, I'm talking about Namibia here, which is in Southwest Africa. It's a new country, 25 years old. Broke away from South Africa and kind of broke the back of apartheid. They had the first legislation against apartheid in 1979. Now, this is my team. We're trying to, Namibia is a huge country geographically. It's twice as big as California. It has about 5% as many people as California. It has about 2.5 million people. So it's very sparsely populated, very big. We're trying to craft something that will have an effect across the entire country. But with 2 million people, we can do that. And we're going to be doing this over the next 3 years. I welcome ways that you can find to join us. So these are people from the Ministry of Education and the main university, the University of Namibia, who are in this mix. And so here are what we try to do with in our projects. We try to introduce ways for teachers to communicate with ICT. I'm going to talk in just a moment about the specific affordances of pen and touch. And we're pretty familiar with those, but I'll underscore those. We do a lot of work in teacher professional development. There's a strong research base in everything we do involving immersion of teachers into content and immersion of students and teachers in collaboration. And a really big deal is the sense of intrinsic satisfaction when teachers actually come into more possession and ownership of what they teach. In about 2 weeks, there will be a huge conference, the largest ICT conference in education in Africa, and there will be hundreds of presentations about organizations bringing great content into schools in Africa. Our model is very different. Our model is one where the content originates in the students and the teachers. It's localized, it is particular to dialect, it's particular to context. So, I guess I have a little bit of sound in here. And these are just video images of working with teachers over the tablets. Very briefly, these are the areas where we work. As you see up by the Angolan border, this is the country of Namibia. This is South Africa down here. And there's one individual at E2, at the Educator Exchange, from this red dot off to the side, a place called Gababis, halfway between the capital. The capital is where I'm pointing right now, and the Botswana border. So I just ran 5 workshops there, and you're seeing images from that. Some of you are familiar, probably most of you are familiar with what we call the media, or the maker movement. We're trying to make what we call the media maker movement, which is the digital version of maker. And our specific desire is to get Namibian teachers and learners. In Namibia, they don't call students, they call them learners. So I'm having trouble readjusting to driving on the right side of the road. I still often turn into the left lane when no one's around from being accustomed. You may have heard me stutter a little at the beginning of this talk. I started calling students learners because that's their terminology, teachers and learners, to create effective and interactive digital curriculum. So the general idea, you all are familiar with Camtasia and other media creation tools. What we're trying to do is collect research on what's involved, how teachers change, how student identities change, how the interaction between students and teachers change when they work together to create the curriculum that's required for their school attendance. It's a very cool thing. We've heard lots of examples, or at least a few examples, of teachers and students making videos, and that's great. What we're trying to do is be systematic and then understand how the dynamics affect what teachers and students are doing. And over here, I'm sorry, on the lower right, one of the tools we use, probably about 80% of what we do is pen-based, but we also do about 20% with GeoGebra because it's a very powerful tool for visualization. In the workshop tomorrow, we'll be using some GeoGebra. Our tools, we use journal and snipping, we use GeoGebra, we use Camtasia. TechSmith has given us free licenses for several years for research purposes. And then we have a boatload of tablet computers, and Sarah, are you smiling? Look at that, Wacom writing tablets that will allow functionality similar to pen-based tablet computers, but at 5% of the cost. We tell the teachers they are dying to get a hold of Surface Pros, but then we stick Wacoms in their hand, and they are thrilled. We tell them that this is 90% as good as a Surface Pro at 5% of the cost. Sierra, you might, in your talk, you might change the way you equate that, but that's a winning proposition. And so we're trying to bring Whatcoms into the, by the way, we've tried every other brand, so, and we're back to Whatcoms, so. I'm really trying to build you up, Sierra.
Thank you.
So let me just talk for a moment about the pen and touch form factors. We had a drumming experience this morning. That was great. We know, look, if you were drumming, you felt something that you usually do not experience in a morning conference session. Media changes what we communicate, how we live and learn. And that was a perfect example. The form factor of using a pen for a symbol-intensive domain like mathematics or like science is very powerful. It's a way that we say yes to teachers. You might not understand or think about it as saying yes, but when you stick a pen in the hand of a mathematics teacher who lives in a world of constraints where everything that they do, they have a problem with, and they can now suddenly digitize symbolism, you are saying yes to them in a very powerful way, and in a way that allows them to express mathematical objects in ways they never dreamed possible. Oh, so I missed the rest of that, but you can imagine, just imagine for a moment, like 6 more really exciting ways that pen is an exciting form factor, and just internalize it. Yes, I already said those. All right, so we talk about GeoGebra, why is it promising? Look, when you start putting this into the hands of teachers who are dying to find ways to teach their students effectively, there's a sense of satisfaction and ownership, and they start to develop skill sets that are very powerful in ICT. With the GeoGebra, which I don't want to get into, this third point, they have an interactive window into how mathematical objects function. Now it turns out that GeoGebra works for us because we mix it up with the pen and the touch. So these are all integrated factors. And I'll say this again at the last sentence, teachers experience satisfaction and pleasure in being creative. NSF originally funded this work because we went to them and said, look, you are funding a national digital library project. I used to be at NSF. I was the Cognizant Division Director who signed into existence the National STEM Digital Library Program. $100 million later, I was long gone from NSF. I went back to the agency and I said, you are finding ways to create digital libraries and repositories for teachers and for educators. But how about if you find a way for them to be creative and imaginative in their own right for their own purposes? And that's where we started our funding. So true professional reward. I wish you could see these students in real life. You would be moved to tears. I don't cry very much, but they got me going. These are just a few pictures of these teachers. Every one of them is an amazing story. This guy finally looks up and he notices he's being filmed. Now it turns out this guy is across the way. He came back, so he's here at Microsoft today. And we tried to get him to come today. He's at the Educator Exchange, but there's just a great openness. And we're going to go back. We've collected a lot of data on how teachers and students are changing. But our goal now is to move beyond understanding, cognition, creativity, curriculum development. There's a lot going on in English language development because they're teaching in English, but the kids are actually speaking in all their dialects. We're trying to change all these dynamics. So there's a big research agenda behind that, but there's also a policy effort that involved those 3 women you saw at the beginning to implement interactive digital media that's created by student learner teams to help affect a large shift in this new country. We think that if it takes place in this new country, it'll have some big implications elsewhere where we have our projects. So, thank you very much.
Sorry. Any questions for Eric? Please.
I showed a video, and I stopped as if they were slides. So Office Mix takes slides and tries to emulate a video. I use a video to emulate slides. How did it work? Okay. Okay.
Yes, please.
So you mentioned that you're using your walk-on tablets.
Yeah.
Do you have like a laptop and tablet, or is it one?
Yeah, you have to understand that in low-income countries, there are often pockets where there are new computers. People buy computer labs all the time. And so we don't rely very much on the internet. We do a lot of phone-based internet. So we just connect them to the computers that they have.
I know that you were working on that idea of like, all over the world. But I could, so the surface is a little high-end because I were experience.
I brought a computer lab with me. I just went through all the airports with a bunch of Surface Pro 2s, 3s, and Fujitsus. And if they had a Windows 7 plus device, Internet Wacom boards, they would bring their own computers. If they worked on their computers, they would do it on their computers. Otherwise, they had to use the device. So there was a lot of homogeneity, but there's a lot of pocket of opportunity in this particular country.
Thank you, Anna. And I